Cinema, baby. Absolute cinema as we look at some key injuries for this matchup, or this chapter of Chiefs-Bills. Isaiah Pacheco is out. Harrison Butker is out as well. Then for the Bills, Dalton Kincaid, Keon Coleman, they're both out. And Amari Cooper, he is questionable. Time now to bring in CBS Sports NFL writer John Breech. And John, Isaiah Pacheco, Harrison Butker have imprinted themselves in this rivalry in different games. So how much of a disadvantage does this put the Chiefs at when you look at what's at stake here?
Chris, you know what? I might sound crazy here, but the Harrison Butker injury might not be talked about enough. You cannot overstate how important he is. He's the Patrick Mahomes of kickers. I mean, I view him as one of the top 2 kickers in the NFL right now, maybe even the top kicker. We saw what he did in the Super Bowl last year. He scored 13 of Kansas City's 25 points. He set the Super Bowl record for longest field goal. He's hit 90% of his field goals this year. He is just absolutely clutch. And when you look at the fact that he's not going to be on the field, the problem there is that the pressure kicks, those are the ones, you don't know how Spencer Schrader, who is going to be kicking for the Chiefs on Sunday after one day of practice, you don't know how a new kicker is going to react to those. He only has 2 field goal attempts in his life, and now you're throwing him out to a huge game on the road against the Bills. You don't know how he's going to react. So I think the absence of Butker absolutely could have an impact. Butker missed a few games back in 2022, and the Chiefs lost one to the Colts because their kicker missed a field goal in the 4th quarter. So that obviously could play into it. With Isaiah Pacheco, I think that Kansas City obviously doing the smart thing here. He's been out since week 2. They've had Kareem Hunt really emerge out of nowhere. I mean, we're talking about he wasn't signed by any team when the season started. The Chiefs said, hey, you're familiar with our system. Why don't you come here and play? And Hunt did, and he has really taken over and looked really good since he's been playing. He's had 3 games where he's gone over 100 scrimmage yards in the 6 games he's been out there. And so because of his emergence, I think that's allowed the Chiefs to be smart with Pacheco and kind of rest him, make sure he's fully healthy before he gets on the field. So obviously you want to have Butker and Pacheco out there. The Chiefs won't. They'll have to figure out how to win. But you know what? If any team can do it, the Chiefs can, because they have been dealing with a lot of injuries this season, Chris.
They've been dealing with injuries, poor play, on the receiver position going back to last year, and it still did not matter. Now, on the other side, John, Josh Allen is going to be without a couple targets, right? Amari Cooper is questionable, so we're not sure if he's going to play. So how much more pressure does this put on Josh Allen to be like Superman?
Oh, this absolutely puts a ton of pressure on Josh Allen. Look, when you're facing your arch enemy, you want to be at full strength, and the Bills' offense is not going to be that way. When you're out Keon Coleman, you're out Dalton Kincaid, these 2 guys, that's the number 2, number 3 receivers as far as receptions, receiving yards go in the Bills' offense this year. So if you're Josh Allen, you got to look around and say, all right, well, who am I throwing the ball to? Obviously, Khalil Shakir should expect a high uptick in targets because that's going to be Josh Allen's guy. He's the leading receiver right now. He's going to see even more passes, but then you look down the line. Who else can get Josh Allen get involved in that offense? We know Amari Cooper's questionable with that wrist injury. He seems like he's trending toward playing. He needs to come up big for Buffalo. And then you have Mac Hollins. Maybe this turns into a Mac Hollins game, Chris. And you know what? Let's not forget the Bills also have Dawson Knox. I think he's one of those guys that people kind of forget about just because Dalton Kincaid's been such a big part of that offense. But Josh Allen would really love to see a huge game from Dawson Knox. And then, of course, James Cook. I think that when you're missing 2 of your key receivers, 2 key pass catchers, what you want to see is your rushing attack take off. If James Cook has a big game, that takes a lot of pressure off Josh Allen, takes a lot of pressure off that passing attack. So I think those are your guys you need to lean on with Dalton Kincaid and Keon Coleman out.
Yeah, absolutely. Establishing the run game is going to be key for the Buffalo Bills if they want to get a W. Then for arguably the second best game of the Sunday slate on CBS, Ravens, Steelers, Lamar versus Russ, top spot in the AFC North on the line. Good news for Baltimore. Their star safety, Kyle Hamilton, should play after injuring his ankle versus the Bengals. So how big of a boost will that be against the Steelers offense that really is clicking ever since Russell Wilson came back as QB number 1?
Yeah, when you look at this Ravens defense, it has struggled against the pass this year. They rank dead last stopping the pass. They just haven't been good. And you have to have Kyle Hamilton out there because he's really the backbone of that secondary. If he had not been able to play, that's absolutely devastating. But he's going to be out there, and he's the guy you need. He's the team's second leading tackler. He's broken up 7 passes. And so he's just kind of the utility guy in that Ravens defense that does it all. So when you're looking to stop the pass, when you're looking for a guy to come up and make tackles on the run, that's what Kyle Hamilton does, and that's why they absolutely need him out there. So having Hamilton out there is going to help that defense be better. Now, will they figure out how to stop the pass suddenly because it's something they haven't been able to do through the first 10 weeks? That remains to be seen, but Kyle Hamilton absolutely makes the defense better.
Yeah, he is a game changer, one of the best safeties in the league. And Marlon Humphrey told it, after the Bengals game, it's like these wins, they're becoming harder to enjoy because of all the yards and points we're giving up. So if they want to really show that they are a vintage Baltimore defense, a test against the Steelers will go a long way. Now, running back for Pittsburgh, Jaylen Warren, he's questionable for this matchup against the Ravens. Means more of a load is going to be placed, John, on Najee Harris. So do you think he has the ability at this stage in his career to handle that type of load and that type of responsibility to make sure the Steelers have a great rushing attack?
Well, Jaylen Warren, real quick, I think has been interesting because you look at the beginning of his season, he got off to a slow start. He got banged up. He missed a couple games. He came back from injury, and now he's looked almost unstoppable. You looked at what he did against the Commanders last week. He averaged 4.7 yards per carry on 14 carries. You look at the week before that against the Giants, he averaged 5.1 yards per carry. So what he's been doing is he's been coming up with these chunk plays when he's going in there, and that's huge for an offense when you've got a running back who's averaging 5 yards per carry over the past 2 weeks. So if he can't play, yes, that is definitely going to hurt. But as you just mentioned, Chris, Najee Harris, can he carry the load? I absolutely think he can. He has looked just reinvigorated really over the past month. And I think that what Russell Wilson being the quarterback does, it opens up the offense where you had teams earlier in the season that they just weren't worried about Justin Fields throwing the ball. So they just go up and say, you know what, we dare you to try and run Harris or Warren on us, and we're just going to shut that down. But now that Russell Wilson's out there throwing to George Pickens, throwing touchdown passes to Mike Williams, who's only been with the team for a game or two. So now you have this offense that can throw the ball, and I think that opens things up for that rushing attack. And I do think Najee Harris can absolutely carry the load. And you know what? If they have to, if Jaylen Warren's not out there, maybe you give Cordero Patterson some touches back there in the backfield. I think that could help the Steelers tremendously. So I do think they will be able to survive if Jaylen Warren can't play.
And whatever happens, hopefully we get a classic Steelers-Ravens duel. John Breech, always appreciate talking to you about the NFL, man. And again, we have a great buffet of games. Ravens, Steelers at 1. Anthony Richardson back as QB1 against Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. And then at 4:25, the game that so many people will be locked into, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs versus Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills.